Hey there, welcome into the HUBCast. It is Tuesday, August 23rd. I'm Adam Alexander, once again with my producer friends. Introduce yourselves.
I'm Max Harnett.
I'm Russell Wenrich. I'm a stats guy too, by the way, not really a producer. But
yeah, but it's kind of like you're a stats producer, kind of.
A booth producer, like produce the booth up there.
Yeah, I would say that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go with that. Are you comfortable with that title for Russell?
Yeah, and I'm comfortable saying that I know nothing about stats.
Here's the thing.
I just email Russell, and then he sends me the correct information.
I'm just going to start asking you guys to introduce yourselves, and then you guys can give your own title. How about that? You could say your hometown.
Creative
you could
director.
Say what role you play.
Just make up a role.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
Are no rules. Did you guys watch the Olympics?
Yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Careful. That's a different network. We can't say we watched it a lot. We could say we know what happened, right?
What was your favorite event?
No, I watched it a lot.
You know what? I'll say this: traditionally, I like basketball. I'm a basketball fan. More college than NBA.
I didn't watch any Olympic basketball.
But Olympic basketball doesn't excite me because I feel like it's somewhat of a foregone conclusion that those guys should win the gold medal.
Yeah.
You know, where there are a lot of other sports that you don't get to see on a regular basis. I enjoy volleyball a lot, whether it's on the beach or indoors. I mean, I think the volleyball is fantastic, and I think we should have a professional volleyball league. I mean, these athletes are incredible. I mean,
don't we
from
have
all
a professional volleyball
do we?
league?
I don't know.
They do have one.
Okay.
But
Well, I think it
not
should be
at the same level as.
that is good. It's so competitive. Those guys are unbelievable, and gals.
What do you watch?
Volleyball's my favorite, but I played.
But I love track and field. I've always been a track and field fan. I mean, dating to my local days in TV news when we go out and cover local sports, I loved, the local track and field meets and all that. And then swimming is great. And I think part of that, is the Michael Phelps effect, but I love swimming.
But you also have a personal connection to the swimming this year, right?
I do. Oh,
Lily
King, of course. She's from Evansville. Went to the same high school as my wife. So
She's bringing it on the.
Here's the thing. When you lived
trash.
in Evansville and it doesn't get as much national play as some of the other locations around the globe, and then they hit the big time like they did with the Olympics, we like to claim her as our cousin, and people wouldn't know the difference. So let's just go with that. Yeah. My long-lost cousin, Lily King. But there is a tie-in, I think, to the Olympics and NASCAR. And you think about this Olympics, Usain Bolt, who does it again, winning 3 gold medals in 3 events. Michael Phelps and his amazing comeback and all that he's accomplished when you look at his Olympic career. I think safe to say 2 of the greatest Olympians all time. You look at, Katie Ledecky, who's an unbelievable swimmer on the female side and hasn't put up the hardware that Michael Phelps has, but certainly is on her way.
Yet. Who knows? She could.
Yeah,
She's
someday
young.
could, yeah. And Simone Biles, kind of the same role on the gymnastics side of things. I just think about this Olympics, and we could very well have been watching the greatest Olympians all time competing on the stage in Rio. And I transitioned that to NASCAR, and I thought, you know what? Week in and week out, we truly are right now. I mean, just go to Bristol over the weekend, whether you're talking, go from the truck race to the cup race. In those 3 races, in some different level, we are seeing truly some of the greatest that we will ever see drive a stock car competing right now on a week-in, week-out basis against one another. Is that analogy fair? Do you guys agree with that comparison? What do you think?
I completely agree because I consider this the best era of racing that we've ever had. Like the most competitive and the most talent we've ever seen.
I agree. I'm not that old, so I haven't been around for some of the older generations or iterations of NASCAR, but to me, from what I've seen...
I'm not really that old either, to be quite honest about it. I'm older than you, but
Sure.
I'm not that old.
Sure. We can go with that. I totally agree, though. I think the competition level is at its highest in terms of across the board who's capable of winning a race.
Well, and we've talked about this, but there are 33, and I'm not putting you on the spot here, but if you know, tell me, 33 Sprint Cup champions all time? It's right.
I believe it's 33.
33.
Yes.
Okay, so give or take.
Give or take
okay.
1 or 2.
Okay.
1.
So a fourth of those are competing right now. I think I figured up there's 8 active, if you include Jeff Gordon, who's been back out of retirement driving the 88.
Which you have to.
Yeah. So over the weekend at Bristol, We had Jeff Gordon, who's got 4, Jimmie Johnson, who's got 6, Tony Stewart, who's got 3. Also on the list, Kurt and Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Matt Kenseth, Kevin Harvick. I'm not missing anybody, am I, that's won a Sprint Cup championship. So there's 8. So 1/4 of the Sprint Cup championships all time are being represented on track right now.
Is that number, is it similar in terms of the number of championships that have been handed out versus how many are on track right now? Do you know?
No, because you think these guys haven't been competing that long, you know?
Sure, but you're talking about the 6 for Jimmie, the 4 for...
Be 18 total, I think.
Yeah.
If you compile the championships of those 8 guys.
Not close.
Because they just haven't raced over that long period of time.
But they will have
It's
accounted. Yeah, I mean,
that's more of a third than a little under a third than.
But that's still a good number.
Yeah,
that's still an impressive number. And I think about this too. We just talked about the guys that have won Sprint Cup championships. Let's go a step further. Because the point you made when we were having this discussion before we came in today was, Michael Phelps has won 28 medals, 23 gold, okay? Simone Biles isn't there, but she hasn't had an opportunity to get there yet. I mean, you feel like, and I don't know anything about women's gymnastics, but you feel like based on everything you've heard and read from the people that do know, that while she was great in Rio, her best is yet to come. And she's young, and she's got so many great years in front of her. And barring an injury or something unforeseen, she will get on that plateau with Michael Phelps at some point in her career. I look at William Byron, who's won 5 truck races and 15 starts, or whatever it is for him, who just announced he's going to go drive for Hendrick Motorsports. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. I think about Eric Jones, who in just a few years of competition already has a truck championship, has got multiple Xfinity wins, racing week in, week out against the best there are in the sport, and likely this year, well, he is the front runner, no doubt, when it comes to those chasing the Xfinity title. Joey Logano, Kyle Larson. I mean, the list goes on and on of young drivers that still are looking for a championship that are yet to really reach their peak because of how old they are.
Yeah, it's tough to make that comparison in my eyes because it's so... What a guy does in the truck series, what he does in the Xfinity series is so far removed from being able to do it in the Cup series. And I think you've seen plenty of athletes win NCAA championships. They win at the Olympic trials and the U.S. Olympic trials, and they get to the Olympics, they get overwhelmed by the competition. And I think you're going to see some of that with some of these guys, and not all of them, but they're going to get to the Cup series and it stalls out. I mean, Austin Dillon won a truck championship, an Xfinity championship, and came right up to the Cup series. And not that he's not improving, but he didn't come in and set the world on fire.
I mean, this year, if he makes the chase, it'll be the first time he's made the chase.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to do that.
And he's having a great year, though, too.
And Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Year.
I mean, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won back-to-back Xfinity titles.
Yeah.
And was a regular winner in the series. I mean, Ricky Stenhouse was not one of those guys that won a championship without winning races. I mean, he won races and won the title and got to the Cup level. Some of it circumstantial because he's driving for Roush Fenway, and they have not been as good once he moved up to the Cup level with their equipment and their level of competition.
Same goes for Austin Dillon, though, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, the guys that you're talking about, some of these great Olympians of all times, the guys I see currently driving that kind of fit that mold are guys like Jeff Gordon, if we're going to include him in current drivers. I mean, he came in, he started winning right away, and he won a lot and often. Guys like Kyle Busch, who won early on in their career and have continued to kind of keep that up, and he continues to get better with age.
Who are you comfortable putting on the list? We got the 8 champions. If you're talking about those that someday could be in the conversation to be, some of the best ever, who has not won a championship that you guys think someday will be in the conversation?
I think Joey Logano could be a guy that makes his way in that conversation because just how young he is. He's already got a boatload of wins, and he's 25 years old. I mean, he's got a lot of life left in him. I think he could be one of those guys you eventually see making his way up there.
Yeah, if you're doing a draft of guys that haven't won a championship, no doubt first guy off the board is Joey Logano.
No.
You don't think so?
Really?
Eric Jones.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. The guy's got 5 Sprint Cup starts. Joey Logano won 6 times last year.
But his potential's so much
great. But I'm saying,
greater than I think
you're looking
Joey
at
Logano is.
surefire success at NASCAR's top level.
So you don't.
Logano's a surefire pick because
Yeah.
we've seen it.
But so you don't think Erik Jones has that potential and more?
He's got all the potential in the world.
The potential is beyond comprehension for Erik Jones. But to Mac's point, it's still unproven at the top level.
Joey Logano's had 7 years in this sport and hasn't won a championship yet.
But we just said it's the most competitive it's ever been. He's won at every type of track. He's won a Daytona 500. He's won the Bristol Night Race twice. He's won the All-Star Race. I mean, I think overall he's kind of proven he belongs.
Okay.
Went to Homestead,
I'm
first
not
year of the
saying-
elimination of the chase.
I didn't say he didn't belong. I just said that I think Erik Jones will win before he will.
Now, what about how do you?
blows
Let me
me
ask
away.
you this: How do you measure William Byron, Erik Jones? How do you measure those two against one another?
Oh, that one's hard.
It is hard.
It's really hard.
But I think a pretty fair comparison from the standpoint that in the truck series, driving the same equipment. Yeah. Pretty much.
What's impressed me about William Byron, I think Wednesday night's the first time he technically lost a race.
Do you think that was the case, or do you think the part?
He had a part problem, but he still.
Yeah, no, when he got out there,
he was leading with 20 to go, or 21 to go, but I think he's incredible. Like he's just, and he's only been racing for 3 years. Like that's the other thing. That's super
incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I like both of them, which takes me to our second topic of the day, and the announcement came last Thursday that William Byron has signed a deal, multi-year agreement with Hendrick Motorsports. Will drive for Junior Motorsports in 2017 in the Xfinity Series. Don't really know what the long-term plan is, but it was obvious this was not like he's bringing a sponsor and going to drive for Dale Jr. in the Xfinity Series. He is on the Hendrick plan. His long-term future is with Hendrick Motorsports, and he will be at the Cup level with them at some point. We don't know exactly what that timetable is. They may not know, but they certainly at this stage have not made that announcement. That news totally caught me off guard. I was really surprised by it because I felt like with Erik Jones going to drive for Furniture Row next year, it just made sense that William Byron goes up and drives Xfinity for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yeah.
But I believe this move really changes the way you look at the sport for the next 10, 12 years.
I thought it was huge. Like I'll always remember where I was when I heard that news. I don't know about you, but it was one of those things like a 9/11 thing, like where you know where you were when you.
Yeah, I know why
news.
you said that. You're taking a shot at me, but that's okay. Go right ahead. He's losing it.
I can't.
Max, what was your reaction
I
to
thought
William Byron?
I thought it was a really good move on the apart from Chevy as a whole and Hendrick is that they don't have any drivers in the pipeline, in my opinion, of William Byron's
Chase Elliott.
level. Well, Chase Elliott starting the Cup Series. I'm talking about guys in the pipeline that they need to have guys ready so when those Cup spots open up that they have somebody to fill them. And I think this was a huge move in kind of solidifying that lineup a little bit.
So which manufacturer is best positioned for long-term success after this move when you look at the youth movement and the guys that are coming up through the system? You still believe Toyota?
Yeah, definitely.
Based on who do you see and what?
Yeah, well, I mean, Erik Jones sure coming up is huge.
Absolutely, I
me, is
agree.
number
Erik
one.
Jones is the top guy. After that,
Suarez, yeah, I think if they put Suarez in a Cup ride next year, I wouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah, Matt Tifft. I mean,
Christopher Bell, I think, has got to be before him.
But I think Matt Tifft is a really solid option as a guy that can make that move.
Now, I think when you look at guys that are not yet in a Cup car, Toyota has positioned themselves the best.
Yeah.
But I think with the William Byron move, you can make a strong case for the other manufacturers. And I look at William Byron, who's now moved over to Chevrolet. You've got William Byron, who some might say is next off the list after Erik Jones when you look at young drivers.
Yeah.
You got. I mean, he's there. He may not be up for debate, but he certainly is early. He's young. Done everything he needs to do to impress you. So you got William Byron, you got Kyle Larson, and I know Kyle hasn't won, but he hasn't been with that A-list team yet either. I look at Chase Elliott. I look at those three guys in the Chevy camp, and I like what I see there.
But you have to eliminate Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. You go to the lower level because look at Toyota. They have their talent's pretty young at the.
I understand, but and Toyota has Kyle Busch, so you have to factor Kyle into that
Denny
conversation.
Hamlin's not. He's going to be around.
He's
38.
Not 38.
He's 36, I believe.
36. Okay.
So he's got 5 more years.
Right. I look at Ford though, and I've said this for a long time about Roger Penske. I mean, Brad Keselowski's 31, 32. He's got a championship.
Yeah.
Joey Logano's 26, and we all agree what he brings to the table. Right?
Almost.
I didn't say he wasn't good.
2/3 of us agree on what he brings.
Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
And Chris Buescher.
Yeah.
And Cole Custer's going to be a part of the Ford family now.
Well, and Darrell Wallace Jr. is not.
Darrell Wallace Jr. Now.
Reddick, is Tyler still.
Tyler Reddick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick.
I mean,
Daniel Hemrick.
I mean,
there's got young guys that could mature into.
So tomorrow, Chevrolet calls you and says, we want you to oversee our program, okay? Our motorsports program, across the board. How important is the role of the manufacturer to bringing along these young drivers? And are they more involved? I just think they're more involved now than what they were years ago.
I think they've shown recently how powerful they can be, especially when you look at like a Furniture Row, changing manufacturers and the money they can bring to a team. And look how fast that team turned into a legit championship contender. I mean, Ford came in and is taking Stuart Haas under their wing now. They're showing how much weight they bring when it comes to deciding who's going to be competitive and how much money they bring to the game.
I agree, but Furniture Row was good with Chevy too. So.
They were good. They weren't this good. They weren't this good, right?
They were still good.
I mean, that 78 team has never been better than they are right now, right?
I agree with that.
And that's Toyota and bringing the money to help Joe Gibbs Racing and in turn help.
And I don't think the 78 team has to make it to Homestead to say that this was a successful year in comparison to last year. I mean, we all know, I don't care what sport you're talking about, you get into the playoffs, things don't go your way, you have one bad night, and that can be the difference. It doesn't mean it was a bad year. Right. But I will say, I think the disappointment will be far greater this year if they don't get there than it was last year, because they went from a team that could compete with everybody and proved it last year to a team now that is a measuring stick for a lot of other teams in the garage. Yeah. I mean, the expectation with that 78 team now, and I'm not talking about for guys like us that pontificate about what's going to happen. I'm talking about within that organization, their expectation has changed. Yeah. I mean, they see themselves and they measure themselves as an A player, and they should because they are, in fact. And I mean, we're not getting into this. I think you could make a case they're the favorite for the championship.
Yeah, I think
on many fronts.
I don't know if I would say that, but you could certainly make a case for it.
Yeah. And then you can make a case for a lot of people, but
they're on that Mount Rushmore of championship.
The Mount Rushmore. Now you're not going to let that die, right?
I
brought it up out there, and you just keep beating me up about it. Okay. But I do think though we've reached a time when the manufacturers need to get involved, and I felt like the William Byron thing was really a Hendrick Motorsports move.
Yeah.
I don't know what role, if any, Chevy had in that, but I think if you're Chevy, Toyota, and Ford, you really need to start evaluating who you're going to align yourself with and spend the money to do it so you can bring them up as your guy, because the drivers make it happen. And I think it's a little more in balance now, but it was way out of balance in favor of Toyota when you looked at the young guys that were coming along.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
You know who this is interesting for? The one guy that's out there that I don't think's associated with anybody big is Todd Gilliland. Mm-hmm. Like, who's going to make that move for
David
him?
Gilliland's son.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
like
doing unbelievable things in K&N.
Yeah, setting the world on fire in K&N.
Yeah, and that quite honestly, that's what surprised me about William Byron and what he's done this year, is that one, the limited experience that you talked about earlier, and he won a K&N championship, but that doesn't it's great, and you want to win, but that doesn't guarantee anything. There are a lot of unknowns for any driver once you leave K&N.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, he's been as good or better at the intermediate tracks and the tracks he'd never seen before as he has at the short tracks where he's been to in the K&N East Series. So that's what's been impressive to me about him.
It is amazing how different cars suit different driving styles. Like when it reminds me, Jimmie Johnson didn't really do much in the Xfinity Series, made the transition to Cup and blew everybody away. And it just because it fit his driving style better. And I wonder if we're seeing that a little bit with William Byron.
Yeah, and that could be too. Absolutely. And I just think all these young kids now, they have a much better ability to adapt because of all the technology that exists. Chris Buescher, another kid that's graduated through the various levels. I mean, started out racing the Legends and Bandoleros out in Texas and made the move to the Southeast and started driving, for the Roush Group and developed an alliance with them. And he won an ARCA championship and moved up to Xfinity and won the title there last year. And after he won the Xfinity championship, his plans were unknown. I mean, no one really knew for sure exactly what he was going to do. And I think we all anticipated, Jack Roush isn't going to let this kid get away. I mean, he does things the way you want, and he's kind of a throwback, and I mean, just gets it done on track. And I think his Xfinity championship really meant something last year because he was racing head-to-head with Chase Elliott, who had won it the year before. And so just a lot about that championship that meant a lot. And then he goes over to run for Front Row. And it's an opportunity to move up to Cup and race against the best week in and week out. But I have to admit, when he made that move, I went, I don't – that's a tough move to make because you're not in A or B equipment. I mean, you got work to finish in the top 20 every week.
And we've seen it with other guys that make the transition to a Cup team that's not competitive and they get lost. I mean, Cole Custer jumped up there and didn't go well, and he kind of got lost in that shuffle. He was one of those guys that we talked about being the next big thing, and then we kind of forgot about him. Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of run that danger a little bit of kind of getting forgotten if you get into a car that isn't competitive.
Absolutely. You got to be careful.
Well, the other problem is, though, we didn't know what other options he had. Like, that could have been his only option.
Sure.
And you got to take what you can get at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not being critical of the decision. Yeah. I just was fearful that you moved to Cup and you don't have any success. Regardless of the reason, people forget real quickly in this business.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be easy for people to say, he won an Xfinity title, but gosh, I mean, he's at the top level and he's not competitive.
Well, and you have the big deal with this is you got to sign sponsors when you're bringing on guys to your teams. And if a guy's not relevant, sponsors aren't eager to sign up.
But Chris Buescher, conversely to what we said potentially could happen, I think has done the exact 180. He's made Front Row Motorsports as valid as they've ever been. And I realize how he won at Pocono. Chris knows that. That team knows that. But in the format we're in today, they played by the rules. They put themselves in position to make the chase. And now probably feeling more pressure than he's ever felt to execute, goes to Bristol with the aid, some more help now coming from Roush Fenway, finishes in the top 5. He's now been in the top 5 2 of the last 3 races. He's got a 13-point advantage over 31st, and all signs point toward he's going to make the chase. If he takes that 34 team to the chase, if he's able to finish the deal, and I think with some support from Roush Fenway, if circumstances went right, I think they could even advance through the first round of the chase. This guy almost now is in a situation where he can write his ticket. Am I right? You agree with that? I mean, I think he becomes a hot commodity.
I think it's impressive. You go back to what we said before, there's not a lot of room out there for him.
I agree.
Like, where is he going to go? I agree, though. It's impressive what he's doing.
You're right. There's not a lot of room. Yeah. And I think Jack Roush will utilize this success as a way to get him back in one of their Fords, not a satellite team, and give him a real opportunity to make a run at it. I think that's what will happen. And hopefully, for their sake, that is what happens because they deserve to have that success together. And I think Chris is a real loyal guy, and that's where he would like to have it happen for him is right there at home, if you will, with Jack Roush. I just think the way we look at Chris Buescher after he won the Xfinity title and now, and I think owners realize and understand they are believers in what this guy can accomplish.
Yeah, I totally agree. A win makes all the difference in the world because you look how many guys are racing right now that don't have wins.
Oh, think about it. Ricky Stenhouse, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney. I mean, there's a lot of...
There's only 12 guys that have wins.
Yeah, it's a pretty short list, and,
Yeah.
and some pretty good ones, as you said, that haven't won. All right, do you think on Chris Buescher, he's plus 13? Does he stay in the top 30 and make the chase? How do you guys feel about that?
Yes, I think he does. I think with
yes?
the additional support he's getting from the Ford camp, I think he hangs in there.
Russell?
Yes. No.
Okay. I agree. I think he does it easily. I think he'll go to Richmond in a comfortable position. Just has to play a little defense to get in. All right, that's the first question. Second question, rate it. I mean, give me what are his odds of making it through the first round of the chase and getting into the round of 12?
I'll give him a 6.5% chance of advancing.
6.5%
Yeah,
chance.
I'm gonna go
okay.
low.
I would have went somewhere in the 20% chance.
Yeah,
Really?
I would say 20 to 25.
Well, all he needs is 3 guys to have a problem those first 3 races, and he averages 20th, and he goes through.
What's been the average finish for guys advancing out of that first round? What's the lowest average finish?
It's like in that 15 to 20 range in there.
It is that
Yeah.
low or that high, depending on how you look at it.
Just because there's how many,
Or 16 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say this, though. He's won at Dover in the Xfinity Series, which is the elimination race. And I think their biggest question mark will be Chicago because of the intermediate deal and the aero. But if he can get out of Chicago, I think he's got a real chance. And you brought up a good point when we were talking about this last night. This guy's a good points racer. He learned how to do it in the Xfinity Series, got the lead, fought him off. He's learning how to do it now, got in the top 30, trying to maintain his position to get into the chase.
Well, and he's got a crew chief that's pretty dang smart, too.
Oh, yeah, Bob Osborne. I just think once in the chase, and you said this, that opening round, a lot of point racing goes on.
All it is, yeah.
I mean, 3 guys are going to advance with wins, potentially. 9 are going to get in on points when you talk about those moving from round 1 to round 2.
And he's going to start with a 3-point advantage over those
Because he's
guys.
got a victory, absolutely.
Yeah. So
and bonus points have never been so big than those 3 that Chris Buescher will take with him.
Yeah.
Well, Harvick needed to win last year the first round to get out of the first round.
Yeah, he did. All right, fun show. And I think we got some good ones coming up because we're on the doorstep of the chase. Real quick, predictions for Michigan.
I'm going to go with a Ford. I'm going to go with
Joey Logano.
What, you don't like it?
It's the low downforce package.
Yeah. I like Brad Keselowski actually in this pack with this package at Michigan.
First win at his home track.
That's what I'm going for.
He's the one that won the last low downforce package.
Yeah.
Kentucky.
But it was a fuel mileage race.
Oh, don't start. You
Now, wait a
love
minute.
to
Now,
just
wait a
discount wins. Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski.
He was leading
when the checkered flag came out.
when we started saying it was a fuel mileage race, and he stayed out front and won. It wasn't like 5 guys ran out of fuel, and he had a different strategy.
I'm going with Carl Edwards for the win.
Carl Edwards. I like Carl Edwards.
He finished 6th, I believe, there in Michigan earlier this year, and then 2nd at Kentucky.
All right.
The other package. Who do you got?
I got Kevin Harvick going back to back. How many times has he been second there?
It's like
a bunch.
5 of the last 7. He's finished 2nd there. And he's
you could
finished
say that
first
about
or-
you could say that about pretty much every track on the schedule with Kevin Harvick.
I'm going to break a stat that you're going to use tomorrow. Can I use it or not?
You can use it. Go ahead.
No, Greg might get mad. We'll
No.
talk.
No.
Tune in until
Tune
Wednesday's
into Race Hub. Okay,
Race
there
Hub.
you go. That's a tease. Thanks for being here, guys. Enjoy the races this weekend. Thanks for playing along at home. If you're watching on YouTube, we thanks for you watching there. You can always listen to Google Play and get that subscription and listen on iTunes so you can tell us what you think of the show. See you next time.